I never thought I would find myself in a place like this, locked in a basement by my own son. The thought kept circling in my mind, refusing to leave. How could this be happening? How could he do this to us? I stood in the darkness, my back pressed against the cold, damp walls of the basement, feeling the chill crawl up my spine. The air smelled of mildew and dust, and the only light came from a single bulb hanging from the ceiling, flickering like it might give out any second. The floor beneath my feet was rough, uneven, and as I tried to steady myself, my knees wobbled with shock and disbelief. My husband stood beside me, his face pale, his eyes filled with confusion and sadness, but he said nothing. For the first time in years, we were both silent. There was no argument, no blaming each other, just this terrible weight in the pit of my stomach. How had it come to this? I tried the door handle again. It was locked, of course. The sound of the click echoing in my ears as I twisted the knob made my breath catch in my throat. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to accept it. But the reality of the situation was unavoidable. I took a step back and turned to my husband, desperate for some kind of explanation. "What just happened?" I asked, my voice shaking more than I cared to admit. "Why did he do this? Why would he lock us in here?" He didn't immediately respond. He just stared at the floor, rubbing his hands together like he was trying to make sense of it too. His lips were pressed together, tight, as if he had no words left to say. Finally, he looked up at me, his eyes hollow, but there was something there, something more than confusion. Was it guilt? "He's angry, Janet," he said quietly. His voice cracked as he said my name, and I felt a rush of panic. "He's just angry. He'll come around, he has to." But deep down, I knew he wouldn't. Not like this. Not after what we'd just seen. Our son, our own flesh and blood, had locked us in here without a second thought, without hesitation. And as much as I wanted to believe my husband, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had broken inside our son. Something deep and unfixable. I pressed my ear to the door, trying to listen for any sound outside. Maybe he was out there, packing, or maybe he was talking to someone, figuring out what to do next. But I heard nothing. The silence was deafening. "I don't understand," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "What happened to him? He was always such a good boy, such a kind boy. How could he do this to us?" My husband's eyes welled up, but he blinked them away quickly. "We must have done something wrong, Janet. Maybe we weren't paying enough attention. Maybe we didn't notice his pain. He's been slipping away from us for months, and we didn't see it." I felt the tears well up in my own eyes. I didn't want to cry. Not now, not when I needed to stay strong. But I couldn't help it. The truth of what was happening, of what had happened, was starting to sink in, and it was suffocating. How had we gotten to this point? Where had we gone wrong? We had tried so hard to be good parents, to provide him with everything he needed, everything he could ever want. And now, this was how it ended. Locked in a basement, helpless, with no idea of what to do next. "I thought we were supposed to protect him," I said, my voice cracking. "I thought that was our job. How did we miss this? How did we fail him?" "We didn't fail him," my husband said, though his words lacked the conviction they should have had. "He's grown up, Janet. We can't control everything. Maybe he's just going through something we don't understand. Maybe he needs space." Space, that word felt like a knife twisting in my chest. How could he think this was just a phase? How could he believe that space was all our son needed? He had locked us in here. This wasn't a phase or a teenage tantrum. This was something far darker. And as much as I wanted to scream, to pound on the door and demand answers, I knew that wouldn't do anything. We were trapped, in every sense of the word. We were locked in a cold, dark room with no way out, and the only thing left to do was wait. I sank down to the floor, my legs giving out beneath me. My husband sat beside me, his arm around my shoulders, but it felt distant, like we weren't the same people anymore. I looked at him, searching his face for something, anything, that could make sense of this. But all I saw was a man who had been as blindsided as I was. "I'm scared, Tom," I whispered. "I'm really scared." "I know," he whispered back. "I know." We sat in silence, the minutes stretching into what felt like hours. I wanted to call out to our son, to beg him to open the door, to tell us what was wrong. But something told me that would only make things worse. Our son had made his choice. He had locked us away, and there was no going back from that. Suddenly, I heard a noise, a faint scratching sound coming from above. My heart leaped in my chest. It was the sound of footsteps. My son? No, it couldn't be. He would have said something by now. But as the footsteps grew louder, I realized that someone was coming to check on us. Someone had heard us. I stood up, feeling a wave of panic wash over me. Tom, what do we do? What if he comes back? Tom grabbed my arm, holding me steady. Stay calm, Janet. We don't know who it is yet. It could be anyone. We have to be smart about this. I nodded, my mind racing. I didn't know what was happening outside the basement door. I didn't know if our son had gone to tell someone what he had done or if he was just waiting for us to beg for mercy. I didn't know if we were going to be stuck here forever. But I did know one thing. This wasn't how my story would end. I wouldn't sit here and wait for someone to save me. I had to find a way out, a way to fix this, a way to get my son back before we lost him for good. I won't give up on him, I said, my voice trembling with a newfound resolve. I won't let him destroy our family. Tom looked at me, a flicker of something, maybe hope, maybe fear in his eyes. What do you mean? I mean we have to fight, Tom. We can't just sit here and wait for him to make the next move. We have to take control back. Tom opened his mouth to protest, but then he closed it as if he realized that I was right. You're right, but how? How do we even start? I swallowed hard. I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out. We have to. The footsteps above us grew louder, and I felt a rush of adrenaline. Whatever happened next, we couldn't afford to sit idly by anymore. It was time to take control. The door slammed shut with a sound that echoed in my ears, each second growing heavier, more suffocating. It was a dull, final thud, the kind that made your heart skip a beat, and I felt the weight of it deep in my chest. My son, my own son, had locked us in the basement. I couldn't breathe at first. I just stood there, frozen, staring at the door as if by some miracle it would open again. Maybe it wasn't real. Maybe this was some cruel joke. But no. The cold, metal door handle told me everything I needed to know. We were locked in, and the world as I knew it was crashing down around me. Tom, my voice was barely a whisper, shaking with disbelief. My eyes shot to my husband, standing beside me. He hadn't moved. His face was pale, his lips pressed into a thin line, but he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the door too, as though he too was trying to make sense of what just happened. Tom, I repeated, louder this time, but no less desperate. What just happened? My husband turned slowly, his eyes meeting mine, but they held nothing but confusion. No anger, no comfort, just nothing. He didn't answer me immediately, as if he couldn't find the words. He finally exhaled a shaky breath and spoke in a voice so low I almost didn't hear it. He's angry, Janet. He's just angry. He'll calm down. I wanted to scream at him. Calm down? How could I calm down when my own son had locked me in a basement? How could he think this was some passing emotion that would fade with time? The son we had raised, the boy we had nurtured, who we had sacrificed so much for, had just shut us away like we were nothing. A cold, isolated silence followed his words, and I could hear my heart hammering in my chest. I don't understand, I said, shaking my head. He was supposed to love us. He's our son. Tom didn't respond at first. He just kept staring at the door, and his face slowly twisted into a mixture of confusion and guilt. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just an isolated act of rebellion. Something had been building up for a long time, something we didn't see, didn't notice, or maybe didn't want to see. Maybe our son had been screaming for help, and we hadn't heard him. Maybe he felt abandoned, betrayed, and this was his way of showing it. He's not a child anymore, Janet, Tom said, finally breaking the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. He's a young man. He's dealing with things we don't understand. Dealing with things we didn't understand? That felt like an understatement. Our son had turned on us. The trust, the love, the years of caring for him and giving him everything he needed, all of it had been thrown away in an instant. And now, here we were, locked in a cold, dark basement, completely powerless. I don't care what he's going through, Tom, I snapped, my voice shaking with anger and frustration. This is not how you treat your parents. This is betrayal. Tom flinched at my words, and for a moment I regretted raising my voice. But the anger, the helplessness, and the confusion were bubbling up inside me, and I couldn't keep it in anymore. We had raised him. We had done everything for him. And now, this was how he repaid us. I slammed my fist against the wall, the pain shooting up my arm, but I didn't care. I felt like I was losing everything in that moment, losing my son, my family, and any sense of safety. The tears that had been threatening to fall finally spilled over, and I wiped them away angrily, as if that would somehow stop the flood of emotions. "I don't know what to do, Tom," I said, my voice breaking. "I don't know how to fix this." "We'll figure it out," Tom said, his voice sounding distant. He took a step back, his eyes scanning the basement as if trying to find a way out. We have to stay calm." Stay calm, stay calm. The words repeated in my head, but they felt hollow. How could I stay calm when my own son had turned on us like this? How could I stay calm when everything I knew, everything I believed in, was falling apart? We stood there for what felt like hours, the silence between us thick and suffocating. I couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. Our son, the boy we had raised, had made a choice. A choice that sent us into this basement, locked away like criminals, while he went about his life outside, probably feeling some twisted sense of satisfaction at what he had done. I turned toward Tom, my voice quieter now, filled with a sense of disbelief. "Do you think he'll ever open the door? Do you think he'll ever let us out?" Tom didn't respond. He just stood there, looking at the door, his jaw clenched. I could tell he was trying to keep it together, but I could also see the cracks forming in his composure. For the first time in years, I saw the weight of uncertainty in his eyes. We had both been so sure of everything, of our family, of our son's love for us. But now I wasn't so sure about anything. I walked over to the door and tried the handle once again. Nothing, it didn't budge. I pressed my ear against the cold wood, straining to hear anything from the other side. The house was eerily quiet, and for a moment I thought I heard something, a muffled voice perhaps, but then it stopped. It was as if the world outside had gone completely still. "I can't do this," I muttered, more to myself than to Tom. "I can't just sit here." Tom came up behind me, his hand resting gently on my shoulder. "We'll figure something out," he said again, though his words didn't have the same certainty as before. "We just need to think." I pulled away from him, feeling a sudden surge of panic. "Think? How are we supposed to think when we're locked in here, Tom? When our son is out there, doing God knows what?" I could feel the tears welling up again, but I didn't want to cry. Not in front of him. Not now. I was supposed to be strong. I was supposed to be the one holding everything together. But it was so hard. Everything felt so fragile. I sank down onto the floor, my back against the cold wall. The silence was deafening. I could hear the pounding of my own heartbeat in my ears. I couldn't stop shaking. I didn't know how to fix this. I didn't even know where to begin. Tom sat down beside me, his hand finding mine in the dark. "We will get through this, Janet. We always do." But as I sat there, in the cold darkness, I wasn't sure if I believed him anymore. Our son had locked us away. He had betrayed us in the worst way possible. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if we could ever get back to what we once had. The idea of trying to fix things felt impossible. But I couldn't just give up. I couldn't let this be the end of our story. "Tom," I said, my voice small but filled with determination. "We need to get out of here. We need to find him. We can't let him win." He squeezed my hand, and I felt a flicker of hope. "We will," he said. "We'll find a way together." Together, maybe that's all we had left, but it was enough. And in that moment, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to let my son destroy everything we had worked for. Not without a fight. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt so powerless. Locked in a basement with no way out, no idea what was happening on the other side of that door. The silence was the hardest part, louder than any argument, than any scream. The quiet, thick like a fog, pressing in around me. I tried to focus on something, anything. The rough, cold floor beneath me, the thin, flickering light from the bulb above that buzzed like it wanted to burn out at any second. But none of it mattered. All I could think about was the son who had locked us in here, the son I had raised to believe in love, in family. Now he had turned on us. He had betrayed us in a way I never thought possible. I looked over at Tom. He was sitting there beside me, his hands clenched together, eyes focused on nothing. I could see the strain in his face, the cracks forming in his calm exterior. He had always been the strong one, the one who kept everything together when things went wrong. But now we were both just lost. We didn't know what to do, how to fix this. "Tom," I started, my voice barely more than a whisper. He looked up at me, but there was no answer in his eyes. I felt a pang of fear deep in my chest. "Do you think he'll come around? Do you think he'll ever let us out?" Tom didn't answer right away. He just stared at me, his face unreadable, like he wasn't sure what to say. Finally, he spoke, his voice thick with uncertainty. I don't know, Janet. I don't know what's going through his mind, but we have to believe he will. Believe, I repeated, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. He locked us in here, Tom. He doesn't care about us, not anymore. Tom shifted uncomfortably, but still didn't speak. I could feel the tension between us, thick and heavy. It was like we were both stuck in this terrible limbo, unsure of what to do next. And then, just as I was about to say something else, something that might have made everything worse, something that might have let my anger and frustration spill out of me like a flood, I heard it. A sound. It was faint, but it was there. A whisper, a low voice. I turned quickly, my breath catching in my throat. The sound was so soft I almost thought I'd imagined it. But no, there it was again. Quiet, Tom said suddenly, his hand grabbing mine. He had heard it too. I froze. My heart pounded in my chest, and I held my breath. There, beyond the locked door, something stirred. It was the faintest sound at first, just a whisper of movement, but it was enough to make me hope. Tom, I whispered urgently. What if someone's here? What if he's coming back too? SHH, he cut me off, his voice low and intense. Listen. I held my breath, straining my ears. There was no mistake this time. I could hear it clearly. Someone was outside the door. A soft shuffle of footsteps, then a voice, barely a whisper, coming from the other side. Don't worry, the voice said. I've been waiting. I nearly jumped out of my skin. The voice sounded so familiar, yet I couldn't place it. My mind raced. Could it be our son? Had he come back to speak to us, to explain? Or was it someone else? Before I could ask, Tom gently pulled me back, out of sight from the door. Stay quiet, he whispered, his breath warm against my ear. This could be our chance. My heart skipped a beat. Was this really happening? Were we about to have a chance to get out of here? I felt a surge of hope, a rush of energy coursing through my veins. Maybe, just maybe, we weren't completely powerless. I held my breath again, waiting for the next sound, the next movement, trying to listen as carefully as I could. The footsteps stopped. The voice came again, clearer now. Don't make a sound, just listen. I heard the click of the lock turning. The door, was someone really opening it? I couldn't believe it. I couldn't breathe. The sound of the lock was like music to my ears. Tom, I breathed, my voice shaking with excitement and fear. Someone is here. They're coming to help us. SHH, Tom whispered. His grip tightened around my hand, and I could feel the tension in his body. He was just as on edge as I was. Stay calm, stay quiet. Then, with a soft creak, the door cracked open, and a sliver of light spilled into the dark basement. My breath caught in my throat. I couldn't believe it. There, standing in the doorway, was a figure I didn't recognize. He was tall, dressed in black, with a hood covering most of his face. He didn't look like anyone we knew. I felt a jolt of panic rush through me, but something in his stance, the way he held himself, made me pause. He wasn't here to hurt us. Who are you? Tom demanded, his voice low but steady. He had recovered quickly from the shock. I was still frozen, unsure of what to think. Was this a trap? The figure didn't speak at first. He just stood there, looking at us through the shadow of his hood. Then, finally, he took a step forward, his voice soft but clear. I'm here to help you, he said. I felt a mixture of relief and doubt wash over me. Who was this person? What was he doing here? And why was he helping us? So many questions ran through my mind, but I didn't dare speak them aloud. I couldn't risk it. How? Tom asked, his voice sharp with suspicion. How do we know we can trust you? The man hesitated for a moment, then took another step forward. He lowered his hood just enough for us to see his face. He was younger than I expected, maybe in his mid-20s, with sharp, angular features and dark eyes that looked almost too serious. You don't know me, he said quietly, his voice calm. But I know you, I know what's happening here, I know what your son has done. My heart stopped for a moment. He knew about our son. How had he been watching us? But before I could ask any questions, the man continued. I've been watching your son for weeks, he said. He's not just angry, Janet, he's being manipulated. Someone has been controlling him from the shadows, making him think this is what he wants. I felt a chill spread through me. My son wasn't acting out of pure hatred. He was being controlled. The idea was hard to process, and my mind struggled to understand. Who? Tom asked, his voice raw. Who's behind this? The man looked around the basement, making sure no one else was listening. Then he leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. It's not just about you two. It's bigger than that. Someone is using your son, and they've been using him to break you. I couldn't breathe, my head spun. This was insane. But deep down, I felt it. What he was saying made sense. Our son had changed so much so quickly. It wasn't just the typical teenage rebellion. There was something else going on here, something I hadn't seen. But why? I whispered. Why would anyone want to hurt us like this? The man shook his head. Because you're stronger than they think. They know that if they can tear your family apart, they can break you. But they underestimated you. They underestimated your strength, your ability to fight back. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Was he right? Had we been too blind to see what was happening? I'd spent so much time feeling hurt and betrayed, but what if we hadn't lost everything? What if there was still a way to save our son, to fix the damage that had been done? The man stepped back from the door, his eyes searching mine. I can get you out of here, he said, his tone more urgent now. But you have to trust me. It's your only chance. Tom looked at me, and for a brief moment we shared a silent exchange. Our eyes met, and in them I saw a flicker of hope. We hadn't given up yet. We weren't defeated. And maybe, just maybe, we could get our son back. We'll trust you, Tom said, his voice steady. The man nodded, a small, almost imperceptible smile on his face. Good, then let's go. And just like that, the door to our future, our escape, swung open, and I stepped into the unknown, ready to fight for the family I still believed in. The door opened wider, and I could feel the rush of fresh air from the outside world hit me, like a breath I had been holding for too long. It was almost surreal. Everything felt blurry, like I had been living in a dream for too long, and now reality was starting to sharpen again. The man who had opened the door stood in front of us, his face still hidden in shadows, though I could tell he wasn't the enemy. He wasn't someone out to hurt us. His words had been full of truth, even though the situation felt impossible to believe. I looked at Tom, and I could see the same mix of disbelief and relief in his eyes. Are you ready? The man asked, his voice steady but tinged with urgency. I didn't hesitate, the words came out of me without thought. Yes, we're ready. Tom nodded, his hand slipping into mine as if this was the only thing left to hold on to. It was strange how easily everything had shifted, how I had gone from being locked in a basement, helpless and terrified, to standing on the brink of something bigger than I could have ever imagined. The man turned and led the way, motioning for us to follow him. We stepped through the door and into the dimly lit hallway. The house felt different now, unfamiliar even though it had always been home. The walls seemed like they were closing in, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we had crossed into a new world. The world outside that door felt like it had changed us, and now we had to find a way to navigate it. What's going on? I asked, my voice trembling slightly as I tried to make sense of everything. How do you know so much about our son? What do you mean someone is controlling him? The man didn't answer immediately. He moved through the house quietly, his footsteps soft against the wooden floor, as if he was afraid of being heard. We followed him closely, keeping our voices low. I wasn't sure if we were in danger, but everything about this situation felt off. Finally, he spoke, his voice just above a whisper. Your son has been manipulated by someone for a long time, someone who knows how to get inside his head and make him do what they want. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. My son, the boy I thought I knew, he was a pawn in someone else's game? It didn't make sense. He had always been a good boy, kind and loving. Yes, he had changed over the past year or so, but this was different. Who, I asked, the word barely escaping my lips. Who would do this to him? The man stopped in front of a door and turned to face us. I can't tell you everything, not yet, but I will help you get him back. You'll understand more once we're outside. There's no time to waste. They're already watching. His words chilled me to the bone. Watching? Who was watching us? Who had been watching our son? I wanted answers. I needed answers. But at the same time, a part of me was starting to trust him. He wasn't threatening us. He was here to help. I had to believe that. We reached the back door of the house, and the man motioned for us to stay close. The night air outside felt different, fresher, sharper. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. This was it. We were stepping into the unknown, and there was no going back. The man looked at us one last time. Once we leave this house, you won't be safe here anymore. They know you're trying to fight back. They won't just let you walk away." "Who are they?" Tom asked, his voice heavy with suspicion. "They're the ones pulling the strings," the man said, his eyes darkening. "The ones controlling your son, manipulating him to keep you both in line. They've been watching you for a long time. You've become a threat to them." The weight of his words hit me hard. A threat? To what? What could we possibly be a threat to? We were just parents trying to hold our family together. "Stay close," the man urged again, his voice sharper now. "Don't trust anyone, not yet." We stepped out into the cold night air, and the world felt different. The house behind us, once familiar and safe, now felt like a prison. I could hear the distant sound of cars on the road, the rustling of trees in the wind. It was so quiet, so still. But there was a sense of urgency in the air, a feeling that something was about to change. The man led us down the narrow alleyway behind our house, moving quickly, making sure we stayed in the shadows. "We have to get you out of here," he said. "There's a safe place, but we can't get there if they find us." "What is all this?" Tom demanded, his voice thick with frustration. "Why are we involved in some conspiracy? Why can't you just tell us what's happening?" "I will," the man said, his voice tight. "But right now, we need to focus. Trust me, I've been preparing for this and I've been watching you both. You have a role to play in all of this, a bigger role than you realize." I looked at Tom, his face lit by the dim light from the street lamps as we moved quickly down the alley. His brow was furrowed in confusion, but I could tell he was starting to understand. There was something bigger going on here, something that had been brewing for a long time, and we had just been caught in the middle of it. But for the first time in a long while, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks: hope. This man, this stranger, was giving us a chance, a way out. He was offering us the opportunity to take control of a situation that had felt completely out of our hands. We kept walking, my feet moving almost automatically, my mind swirling with questions. The man had said our son had been manipulated, controlled by someone. But why? Why had he been chosen? And who was this they who had been pulling the strings? There were so many things I didn't understand, so many pieces missing. But I had to trust that, somehow, it would all make sense soon. Eventually, the man stopped at a van parked at the end of the alley. It was old and nondescript, blending in with the night, but I could see the faint glow of a light inside. The man turned to us, his face serious. "This is where we part ways," he said. "You'll be safe here for now, but there's a lot more to this than just escaping. There's a reason your son has been pulled into all of this, and I promise you, you're going to need to fight for him. This isn't over." I looked at Tom, then back at the man. I had so many questions, so much confusion swirling inside me, but one thing was clear: this was our only chance. This was the moment we could take control. This was our fight, and we had to start now. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady now, filled with a new determination. "Thank you for helping us. We won't forget this." The man nodded, his eyes locking with mine. "Make sure you're ready," he said. "It's going to get worse before it gets better." With that, he turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving us standing there alone, but not without hope. We climbed into the van, and as the door slid shut behind us, I felt the first real sense of control I had in weeks. We had been given a chance. Now it was up to us to take it. And I wasn't going to let anyone take it away. The van rumbled quietly as we drove through the streets, the world outside moving on like nothing had changed. But inside, everything was different. Everything had shifted. I could feel it in my bones, the change that had come with stepping out of our house, the house I once called home. We were no longer locked in the basement, but something deeper had taken its place. The feeling that everything I thought I knew was a lie. The city lights flickered past, casting shadows over Tom and me. We sat in silence, both of us lost in thought, our hands tightly clutching the seat beneath us. I kept thinking about the man who had helped us, the stranger who knew so much about our son, who had been watching us from the shadows. He said there was more to all of this, something bigger than we could imagine. But none of it made sense yet. We were still in the dark. Tom broke the silence, his voice quiet, almost uncertain. "Do you think he's okay? Our son? Do you think we're going to be able to get through to him?" I glanced over at him. His face was a mix of worry and exhaustion, and I could see the lines of stress etched deeply across his forehead. He had been holding it together so well through all of this, but now, even he was unraveling. I don't know, Tom, I said softly. I don't know what to think anymore. Everything's changing so fast, but I won't give up on him, I can't. Tom nodded, though his eyes seemed far away. I could tell he was thinking about our son, about how he had turned on us so quickly. But I also saw something else in his eyes, a flicker of doubt. Could we really fix this? Could we truly reach him before it was too late? The van slowed, and the driver turned down a narrow street, far from the city center. The lights dimmed, and the area grew darker, quieter. The farther we went, the more I felt like we were walking into something we didn't fully understand. My gut told me this was a turning point, the moment we crossed into the unknown. The man who had helped us didn't tell us where we were going, only that we needed to lay low for a while, that we were safe for the moment. But safe from who? From what? I had no answers, only more questions. When the van finally stopped, the driver turned to face us. He said nothing, just opened the side door and nodded toward a tall, gated building. My heart skipped. It looked like some sort of safe house, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were about to enter something far bigger than we could handle. Stay close, the driver said, his voice low and serious. It's better if you don't ask too many questions, not yet. We followed him out of the van and through a side gate into a small courtyard. I could feel the weight of everything pressing down on me again. This was all happening too fast, too much. As we entered the building, I saw armed guards at the doors, their expressions stern and focused, but not unfriendly. They didn't look at us with suspicion. They didn't ask questions. They just let us pass as if we were expected. We were led inside to a small, dimly lit room. The walls were bare, except for a few scattered pieces of furniture. It felt like a safe house, but it was uncomfortable in a way that made my nerves crawl. There was no warmth here, only cold concrete and sterile lighting. And in the center of the room, a table sat with a few chairs around it. The man who had helped us motioned for us to sit. You need to rest, he said, but you also need to know what's really going on, what your son involved in. Tom sat down first, his hands clasped together on the table, his eyes staring hard at the man. I could see he was still trying to make sense of everything, still looking for a reason, for some kind of understanding. Tell us everything, Tom said. Tell us who's behind this, what's happening to our son. The man didn't hesitate. He took a deep breath, then leaned forward, his voice low but steady. Your son isn't acting alone, he's being controlled. There's a group, a secret organization that's been operating for years, manipulating people to do their bidding. Your son got caught up in their plans. They've been feeding him lies, making him think that locking you in the basement was the only way to gain power. Power, I repeated, confused. What kind of power are you talking about? The kind of power they offer, the man explained. The kind that gets people to believe they can control their own destiny. But the price is steep. They take your mind, your will, your sense of who you are. And in return, they promise things that seem too good to be true: wealth, success, freedom from responsibility. They promise things your son has always wanted but never believed he could have. And now, they've twisted his mind into thinking he's in control, that he's free from us, from you. I felt a cold wave of horror wash over me. This wasn't just a rebellious phase. It wasn't just a teenager throwing a tantrum. This was something darker, something far more sinister. My son had been used as a pawn in a game he didn't even understand. But he's our son, I said, my voice shaking. How could he just let them control him? How could he go along with this? The man's eyes softened and he shook his head. It's not that simple. They don't just control people, they manipulate their deepest desires, they prey on their weaknesses. They feed them lies until the truth seems blurry. Your son didn't choose this. He was pushed into it, whether he knew it or not. Tom sat back in his chair, his fingers rubbing his temples as if trying to hold it all together. I could see the pain in his eyes, the guilt. He felt responsible. We both did. We were his parents, after all. How had we missed this? How had we failed to see that our son was slipping away, falling deeper into this dangerous web? I want to talk to him, I said, my voice firm despite the panic that still gnawed at me. I want to see him. I need to understand. I need to know if he's still in there. The man hesitated for a moment before answering. You can, but not yet. You need to be ready. What you're about to face isn't just a fight for your son, it's a fight for your family, and it won't be easy. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his words. We're ready, I said. We have to be. The man stood up and walked to the door. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we start working on getting him back. But remember, this isn't just about saving your son. This is about stopping the people behind all of this. They won't let you just walk away. I nodded, though my heart was heavy. How had everything spiraled out of control so quickly? And what did the future hold for us? I didn't know, but I was determined to find out. As the man left the room, I turned to Tom, my hand finding his. We sat there in silence for a long time, processing everything we had learned. But in that silence, there was something else, too, something new, a flicker of hope, however small. We weren't alone in this. We had each other. And we were going to fight for our son, no matter what it took. The morning came too soon. I hadn't slept much. My mind kept replaying everything I had learned last night, the man's words, the cold realization that our son wasn't just angry with us, but being controlled by something far darker. I kept asking myself, how had we missed this? How had we failed to see what was happening right under our noses? The guilt gnawed at me, pulling me deeper into a pit of despair. Tom was the same. He barely slept, tossing and turning, his mind clearly consumed by everything we had learned. His eyes were heavy, his face pale, but his resolve was still there. I could see it in the way he stood, the way he looked at me. We were both shaken, but we weren't broken. We need to do this, I said softly, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. I didn't want to wait any longer. I needed to see my son, to talk to him, to try and understand what had happened to him. This wasn't just about us anymore. This was about saving him, about finding the boy we had raised and bringing him back. Tom didn't say anything at first. He just nodded, his hand reaching for mine. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes. We were in this together, no matter what came next. We were taken to a small room inside the safe house. The air felt thick with tension. There was a small table in the center and a single chair across from it. The room was empty, save for a few chairs along the walls. It looked so normal, so unremarkable, but I knew that what was about to happen here was anything but ordinary. The man who had helped us, the one who had brought us here, stood by the door, watching us closely. He didn't say anything, just motioned for us to sit. I could feel my heart racing in my chest, my hands trembling as I took a seat at the table. Tom sat next to me, his presence a quiet comfort, but even he was tense. The door behind us creaked open, and my breath caught in my throat. There, standing in the doorway, was my son. For a moment, I didn't recognize him. He looked different. His eyes were cold, distant, almost empty. His expression was hard, as if he had built a wall around himself, shutting everyone out. He stood there, his hands stuffed in the pockets of his hoodie, his posture stiff. My heart broke at the sight of him. This wasn't the boy I had raised. This wasn't the son I remembered, full of laughter, energy, and warmth. Where had he gone? "Ryan," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "It's us, Mom and Dad." His eyes flicked to me, but there was no recognition, no warmth, nothing. Just cold indifference. "Don't bother," he said, his voice flat. "I know who you are." I felt a pang of pain shoot through me. It wasn't just the words. It was the way he said it, like he was speaking to strangers, like we were nothing more than obstacles in his way. "I don't understand," I said, my voice shaking. "What's happening to you? You're not like this, Ryan. You've always been kind, thoughtful. What's going on? Please talk to us." Ryan's lips curled into a small, mocking smile. It wasn't a smile that I recognized. It was empty. "You don't get it, do you? You never did." He shrugged, his gaze flicking to the floor. "I've been told the truth. You're just holding me back, keeping me chained to this pathetic life. I don't need you anymore." Those words hit me like a slap. I could feel the sting, the weight of his rejection, and I wanted to scream. How had we failed him so badly? How had we allowed him to slip away without even knowing it? Tom stood up suddenly, his voice sharp. "Stop. This isn't you, Ryan. You've been manipulated. We know what's been happening and we can help you, but you have to come back to us. You have to come back home." Ryan's eyes snapped to Tom, and for a split second there was something there, a flicker of something in his gaze. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by that cold, empty look again. "I'm not your little boy anymore," he said, his voice hard. "And I don't need your help. You should have left me alone. You should have let me make my own choices." "Ryan, please," I pleaded, standing up from the table. "You're not alone. We're your parents. We love you. We've always loved you, and we will keep fighting for you no matter what." But Ryan didn't respond. He just turned his back to us, his shoulders stiff, as if he was shutting himself off completely. "I don't care," he muttered. "You had your chance." I felt my legs give way beneath me, and I collapsed into the chair, overwhelmed with emotion. This wasn't the son I had raised. This wasn't the boy who used to come to me for comfort, the boy who had laughed at the dumbest jokes, who had cried when he lost his favorite toy. This was a stranger. The man who had helped us, who had been standing by the door, silently watching, finally spoke. "You won't reach him like this. He's been conditioned to believe that you're the enemy, that everything you've done for him has been for control. He's not seeing you for who you are, but as something that's holding him back from what he thinks is freedom." I turned to him, desperate for answers. But how do we fix it? How do we get him back? The man stepped forward, his expression serious. "It's not about fixing him, not in the way you think. You need to show him the truth, but not through words. He's been trained to reject everything you say. You'll have to prove it to him, not just talk about it." "Prove it?" Tom repeated, his voice hoarse with frustration. "How do we prove something like that?" The man looked at Ryan, still standing with his back to us, clearly trying to block us out. "You have to show him that the love you have for him is stronger than the lies he's been fed. You have to break through the wall he's built around himself. It won't be easy, but you can do it." I nodded slowly, the weight of his words sinking in. I had spent so much time feeling like we were powerless, like everything was slipping out of our hands, but maybe we still had a chance. Maybe it wasn't too late to reach Ryan, to remind him who he truly was. I stood up, feeling a new strength building inside me, a strength I hadn't felt in a long time. "Ryan," I said, my voice firm, yet filled with warmth. "I know you're in there. I know you're still my son. I don't care how many lies they've told you, how much they've twisted your mind. I will fight for you. I will keep fighting for you until you see the truth." Ryan didn't turn around, but for a moment, his shoulders seemed to relax just slightly. It was as if, for a split second, he was hearing me. Maybe not completely, but he was listening. "I know you're angry," I continued, my voice softer now. "I know you feel like we've failed you, but we're your parents. We love you, and we're not going to give up on you. Not now, not ever." The room was silent. For the first time since we'd entered this place, I felt like I had said the right thing. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. It was raw. It was the truth. Ryan still didn't turn around, but something had shifted. The air felt different now, like a weight had lifted, if only just a little. The man who had been helping us nodded slowly, as if he could feel it too. "You've done what you can," he said quietly. "Now we wait." We waited in silence. Ryan didn't turn around to face us again, but I could see that something had changed. Maybe it was a small change, a tiny crack in the wall he had built around himself, but it was something, and that something was enough to give me hope. I didn't know what the future held for us, for Ryan, or for our family. But I knew one thing: we weren't done. Not yet. And as long as I had breath in my body, I would fight to bring my son back, even if it took everything I had. It felt like time had slowed down since the moment we first arrived at this safe house. So much had happened in such a short time: our son's betrayal, the revelations from the man who had helped us, and our desperate attempts to reach Ryan. But now, as we sat in the dim light of this unfamiliar place, I could feel something shifting inside me. The air was heavy with the weight of what had happened, but also lighter, as if there was a glimmer of hope we hadn't seen before. I glanced at Tom, who sat across from me. His face was more drawn than I had ever seen it, exhaustion and confusion in his eyes. He had always been the steady one, the rock that kept our family together, but now I could see the cracks forming in that rock. He had been just as blindsided by Ryan's actions as I was, and I could see how much it hurt him. It hurt me too. Our son, our flesh and blood, had turned against us. We had always done our best, always been there for him, and yet here we were, fighting to win him back. "Do you think we can still reach him?" Tom asked, his voice soft but filled with uncertainty. "I mean, after everything, can he really come back to us?" I had asked myself the same question 100 times. Was it possible? Could we really get through to Ryan? Or had he fallen too far into whatever grip this mysterious group had on him? The doubt gnawed at me, but deep down, I knew that we had to try. We couldn't just give up. Not yet. "I don't know, Tom," I said, my voice shaky. "But I have to believe it. I have to believe he's still in there. The son we raised. The son who used to laugh with us, talk to us about his dreams. He's still in there somewhere. Tom didn't respond right away, but I could see him thinking. His fingers drummed lightly on the table, a nervous habit he'd always had. The silence stretched on, but it wasn't as heavy as before. We had taken the first step in the right direction by standing up to Ryan, but there was so much more left to do. I stood up, packing the small room. It was uncomfortable, the walls closing in on me with every step. It felt like there was so much more I wanted to say, so much more I wanted to do, but I didn't know where to start. My mind was racing. The man who had helped us, he had told us we were part of something bigger, that there was a war happening in the shadows, when we hadn't even known about until now. He had told us we had a role to play, but what did that mean? "Do you think we can really stop them?" I asked, my voice almost lost in the stillness of the room. "Whoever's behind all of this, pulling the strings, do we have a chance?" Tom looked at me, his eyes searching mine. I could see the weight of the question hanging in the air between us. We had no answers, not yet. "I don't know," he replied. "But we can't just sit here and wait for it to happen. We have to take control." Take control? Those words echoed in my mind. Take control. How many times had I felt helpless, like everything was slipping out of my hands? But now, the thought of doing nothing, of waiting for someone else to fix this, made me sick. I couldn't stand by anymore. I wasn't going to let Ryan be a pawn in someone else's game. I wasn't going to let anyone take my family away. "Tom," I said, a spark of determination flickering inside me, "we're going to get him back. We're going to fight for him. We've always fought for our family, and that's not going to change. He's our son, and we won't stop until we bring him home." Tom met my eyes then, and I saw the same fire in his gaze. We had been beaten down, yes, but we were not defeated. We would not be defeated. Together, we had raised Ryan. Together, we could fight to bring him back. "We'll do whatever it takes," Tom said, his voice stronger now, more certain. "We won't give up on him." Just then, the door to the room opened, and the man who had been helping us entered. He looked at us both, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I thought he was going to say something about our plan, but instead, he just nodded, as if he had been listening to our conversation. "You're both ready," he said simply, his voice low but firm. "I can see it. You understand now." I stood a little taller. "Understand what?" "That the fight isn't just about saving your son," he said, taking a step closer. "It's about taking back control of your lives, and it's about stopping the people who have been pulling the strings in the shadows for so long." I felt a chill run down my spine. It wasn't just about Ryan anymore. It wasn't just about saving him from whatever had taken over him. It was about something bigger, something dangerous. "What do we do next?" Tom asked, his voice steady but filled with anticipation. The man didn't answer right away. He just stared at us as if evaluating us, studying us. Then, finally, he spoke. "There's a meeting tonight, a gathering of sorts, where the people behind this, whoever they are, will discuss their next move. I've been tracking their movements for a while now. I know where they'll be, and I know what they plan to do next." I felt my pulse quicken. A meeting, what did that mean for us, for Ryan? "But how do we get in?" I asked, my voice tight with uncertainty. "How can we stop them if we don't know who they are or what they're planning?" The man smiled, though it was thin, like he had expected this question. "Tonight, you will find out exactly who they are," he said, "and you'll get your chance to stop them. But you have to be ready. This won't be easy." I looked at Tom, and for a moment, everything else faded. There were so many unknowns, so many dangers, but this was the moment we had been waiting for. We had a chance, just a sliver of a chance, to save our son and stop this nightmare before it went any further. "I'm ready," I said, my voice filled with certainty. Tom nodded. "We're ready." The man didn't hesitate. "Then let's go." We followed him out of the safe house, stepping into the night. The streets were quiet, the city's hum distant in the background, but I could feel the tension in the air. This wasn't just another night. This was the night everything would change. As we made our way toward the location, I couldn't help but feel a sense of determination rise within me. I had spent so much time feeling helpless, feeling like I had lost control. But now I knew what I had to do. I wasn't just going to sit back and wait for things to fall apart. I was going to fight for my family. I was going to fight for Ryan. And I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me. The man led us to a nondescript building on the edge of the city. It was dark and quiet, but something about it felt wrong. I could sense the danger in the air. We were close. So close to the answers we had been searching for. "This is it," the man said, his voice low. "They're inside." We stood there for a moment, the weight of what was about to happen settling over us. We were about to confront the people who had been controlling Ryan. The people who had manipulated him, twisted his mind, and used him as a pawn in their game. I turned to Tom, my heart pounding in my chest. "We're doing this, we're bringing him back." Tom nodded, his hand finding mine. "Together." With that, we moved forward, ready to face whatever awaited us on the other side. The night had already changed us, and now we were going to change everything.